man thought he had saved a puppy, but when he took it to the vet, the truth of the creature's nature shocked him. With the rain still pouring down, Luke rushed out of his car, his jacket held over his head like a makeshift umbrella, and sprinted toward the front door. A faint whimper interrupted the steady drum of rain against the pavement, freezing him in place. Despite the downpour, his curiosity pulled him toward the sound. He followed it, sneakers squelching on the wet ground, until he reached the edge of his property. There, tucked beneath a thick rhododendron bush, was a tiny, trembling form, drenched and shaking. Luke approached cautiously, eyes widening as he saw the matted, tangled fur and the wide, fearful eyes staring up at him. He assumed it was a stray puppy. His heart softened at the sight. He spoke gently, using soothing words to coax the creature closer, promising warmth and safety. With careful movements, the animal inched forward, its small body quivering as it stretched toward Luke's outstretched hand. He scooped it up, wrapped it in his jacket, and hurried inside. The house greeted him with its familiar warmth, the earthy scent of rain-drenched wood and the soft hum of jazz playing for the plants. He set the little creature down on a towel near the fireplace, rubbing it dry, all the while inspecting it more closely. As the fur dried, Luke noticed something odd. The length of its ears and the unusual patterns in its coat didn't resemble any puppy he knew. Intrigued, he prepared some milk and chicken, which the creature devoured without hesitation. But as he watched it, his initial assumption wavered. The creature's behavior wasn't like a typical puppy's. It moved with sharp caution, glancing around warily, and an eerie silence clung to it. It wasn't the boisterous, playful energy of a young dog. Luke settled into a chair by the fire, his thoughts racing. Where had it come from? Why was it alone? He decided to take it to the vet the next day, would offer shelter to this mysterious creature, whose sudden arrival felt as unexpected and electric as the storm that had brought it. The following morning was bright and clear, a sharp contrast to the stormy night before. It was Saturday, and Luke went through his usual weekend routine. A brisk hike through the Blue Ridge Mountains, the crisp air awakening his senses, followed by a hearty breakfast. It was the simplicity he cherished. But today, his routine included an extra task: taking his strange new companion to the vet. Trying to lighten the mood, Luke handed the creature a new plush toy and made playful remarks. But Storm, he had named it Storm, after its keen, watchful nature, was oddly unresponsive. Instead, the creature stared out the window, fixated on the world beyond, as though it had no interest in the toy or in Luke's attempts at humor. Luke couldn't shake the growing sense of unease. Why wasn't Storm acting like a normal puppy? He brushed it off, telling himself that the creature was still adjusting to its new surroundings. After clipping on a makeshift leash, Luke loaded Storm into his car and drove to the local vet. When they arrived, the receptionist greeted them with a polite but sympathetic smile. She quickly informed Luke that Dr. Sophia Ellis was out that day due to a family emergency, and the only available services were routine vaccinations and flea treatments, neither of which seemed relevant to his situation. Instead, Dr. Peterson would be stepping in next week, taking over for Dr. Sophia. Luke sighed, frustrated by the disruption, but decided to head home, wondering about the creature's odd behavior. As he drove, Storm seemed strangely calm, resting in the back seat, occasionally meeting Luke's gaze in the rearview mirror with a look that was both cryptic and unreadable. Days passed, and Luke settled into a new rhythm with his mysterious companion. His initial fascination with the creature's quirks turned into a growing list of strange behaviors. Every morning, while Luke brewed his coffee, Storm would pace methodically across the living room, its steps precise and measured. It ignored the squeaky toys and chew bones Luke had bought, choosing instead to keep a constant vigil at the window, as though it were guarding the house. At night, Storm's behavior became even more unsettling. It would position itself at the foot of Luke's bed, its ears sharp, staring into the dark corners of the room. As the neighborhood fell quiet, deep, mournful howls, nothing like the playful barks of a puppy, would rise from Storm's throat. They were guttural, primal sounds, a kind of mourning that stirred something deep within Luke, sending a chill down his spine. Intrigued but increasingly uneasy, Luke turned to his blog, a small platform where he usually shared coding projects and his weekend hiking adventures. Now, he began chronicling Storm's odd behavior, uploading videos and detailed notes. One post, titled "Is My Puppy Not a Puppy?" quickly caught the attention of his readers, sparking a surge of curiosity and concern. Responses flooded in, ranging from light-hearted speculation to more serious worries. Some suggested Storm might be a rare breed, perhaps a wolf-dog hybrid, while others hinted at even more outlandish theories. Theories swirled that Storm could be an exotic species, or worse, something never before seen in suburban North Carolina. As his blog gained traction, Luke's curiosity grew into a determination to uncover the truth. The more he observed, the more questions piled up. Storm's aversion to normal dog behaviors, its strange vocalizations, and its unwavering vigilance only deepened the mystery. The blog, once a quiet corner of the web, was now buzzing with theories, questions, and wild speculation. The weekend came and went, and the mystery of Storm's true nature continued to gnaw at Luke. He knew it was time for a second trip to the vet, this time hoping that Dr. Peterson would finally provide the answers he needed. Little did Luke know, this visit would unravel his quiet suburban life and lead him down a path he never expected. As they arrived at the clinic, it was business as usual for the suburban pet drama scene. A limping Labrador, a cat hissing fiercely from its carrier, and a variety of worried pet owners, each dealing with their own concerns. Luke felt the knot in his stomach tighten, an odd blend of anxiety and excitement, as he gripped Storm's leash a little more firmly and walked into the waiting room. Storm's presence immediately attracted attention. A woman, heading for the doors, murmured something to her companion, casting a quick glance at Luke and Storm. Her wide eyes betrayed a mixture of curiosity and something darker, perhaps concern. Her companion, a stocky man with a calm golden retriever, looked Storm over for a brief moment before quickly looking away, as though he'd been caught staring. The wait seemed to stretch on forever. Luke felt the weight of every glance, every whispered word. Was Storm truly just a rare breed, or was there something more to it? Each quiet murmur echoed Luke's own doubts, heightening the surreal nature of everything that had happened over the past week. Finally, their number was called. As they neared the examination room, Storm's body went stiff, its muscles taut with tension. Luke gave it a soft pat to reassure it, but as they reached the door, Storm's instincts took over. With one sharp, powerful tug, Storm slipped from Luke's grasp and bolted. Pandemonium erupted in the waiting room. The Labrador barked furiously, the cat screeched from its carrier, and children shrieked as Storm darted past, weaving between chairs and startling the other patients. Luke's heart raced as he called out, desperately chasing the blur of fur that was his wayward companion. Jake, the quick-witted vet assistant, reacted swiftly, sprinting after them. The chase escalated until Storm was cornered in a storage room filled with pet supplies. Breathless, Luke and Jake managed to subdue the creature, its wide, frantic eyes and panting breath betraying the sheer panic it was in. On the way back to the examination room, Luke muttered repeated apologies to the other pet owners, his face flushed with a mix of embarrassment and growing concern. Inside the room, Dr. Peterson stood, arms crossed, his eyebrow raised in amused disbelief. "Quite the spirited one, isn't it?" Dr. Peterson remarked, his voice calm as he closed the door behind them. The room fell into a tense silence, broken only by Storm's shallow, rapid breathing, now held firmly by Jake. Luke's gaze met the vet's experienced one, searching for answers. Peterson donned a fresh pair of gloves and began the examination, his professional demeanor unchanged, though there was an edge of curiosity in his movements. He started by palpating Storm's abdomen, his hands moving gently over the creature's body. Storm remained unervingly compliant, though its eyes flickered nervously, taking in every detail of the room. Through the transparent window, curious faces from the waiting room appeared, peering in as they were drawn by the earlier commotion. When Dr. Peterson opened Storm's mouth to check its teeth, his expression faltered. The teeth weren't anything like those of a domestic dog. They were sharp, predatory, the kind of teeth meant for hunting and tearing, not for fetching sticks. The vet's eyes widened slightly, his brow furrowing as the realization set in. Peterson took a step back, his face shifting from professional curiosity to visible concern. He paused, then began to ask questions, though this time they were no longer routine. "What do you call the animal?" he asked, his tone sharper now. "Where did you find him? How long have you had him? Is this your first time bringing him to a vet?" Luke answered each question, recounting how he had found Storm after the storm, thinking it was just a lost puppy. But with every answer, Peterson's eyebrows rose higher, his gestures growing quicker, his demeanor shifting toward urgent suspicion. After a few rapid-fire questions, he turned to Jake, who had been watching in disbelief. Jake, unable to hide his astonishment, dropped a bombshell. "Sorry for the interruption, but before we continue, Dr. Peterson added, I'd appreciate it if you could like the video and subscribe to our channel. It's really important to us. Thank you very much." Luke blinked in confusion, momentarily thrown off by the abrupt interruption. But before he could process Dr. Peterson's voice grew serious. "This isn't a puppy, Luke," he said, his tone gravely serious. "You've brought in a baby hyena." Luke froze. The words seemed impossible to digest. A hyena? That couldn't be right. But Dr. Peterson, sensing the gravity of the situation, quickly shifted his tone, now speaking with measured calm. "I know this is shocking, but you've brought in a young spotted hyena," he explained, his voice firm. "It's very rare to see them here, but it's important that we handle this carefully." The revelation was almost too much to process. Storm had looked like a puppy at first glance, but its malnourished state had likely concealed its true nature. The creature's fur pattern had even tricked Luke into thinking it resembled a chihuahua, though it was slightly off, a deceptive trait that hid the usual features of a hyena. Peterson continued, detailing the implications of what they were dealing with. Hyenas weren't just rare, they were dangerous. They were wild animals not meant to live in suburban homes. They had specific needs, ones that couldn't be met by domestic care. The vet went on to arrange immediate contact with animal control and a local wildlife sanctuary, making sure that the creature would be handled safely. As Dr. Peterson turned to Jake, giving instructions to prepare a cage, the room hummed with new urgency. Peterson whispered his instructions, ensuring they were both precautionary and humane. Luke, watching the preparations unfold, voiced his concern. Storm had shown no aggression, so why all the precautions? Placing a reassuring hand on Luke's shoulder, Dr. Peterson spoke softly. "I know this feels harsh, but we can't take any chances with a wild animal like this. I understand your concerns, Luke," Dr. Peterson said, his voice steady and reassuring. "But this isn't about punishment. Hyenas are wild animals. While Storm hasn't shown aggression, our priority is both his safety and everyone else's. The cage is simply a precaution, ensuring that all parties involved, including Storm, are kept safe until we can move him to a more suitable environment." Dr. Peterson went on to explain that even juvenile hyenas could be unpredictable, especially in unfamiliar, high-stress settings like a veterinary clinic. He gestured toward the spacious cage that had been prepared for Storm, one designed with comforts to help calm the animal, all while keeping both the clinic staff and the other animals safe. This carefully considered approach did help soothe some of Luke's growing anxiety. Peterson's professional composure, combined with the practical steps he was taking, helped Luke begin to process the astonishing truth. The next steps were clear now. Storm's situation was rare, and it needed to be handled with care and caution. As the room settled into a quiet, focused atmosphere, the preparations continued. Storm was to be temporarily contained while arrangements were made for his transfer to a more appropriate environment for a wild animal of his kind. Jake carefully transported Storm in the newly prepared cage, moving him to a quieter room away from the bustle of the clinic. Luke stood still, watching the small, sorrowful eyes peering out through the bars of the cage. A pang of guilt twisted in his chest. Despite knowing this was the necessary course of action, he couldn't shake the feeling of responsibility for the situation Storm was now in. Luke sat alone with Storm in the dimly lit isolation room, the weight of the day's events bearing down on him. As he processed the surreal twists and turns of the day, he realized that from the moment he had found Storm, something had always felt different. This wasn't just about rescuing a lost puppy. It was about the bond they had started to form, a connection that transcended Storm's wild nature. While they waited for the wildlife experts to arrive, ready to take Storm into their care, The young hyena seemed attuned to Luke's quiet turmoil. Slowly, Storm moved closer to the side of the cage nearest to where Luke was sitting. The creature hesitated for a moment, then gently nudged its head against the bars, eyes wide and full of something akin to hope. Luke reached out, his hand trembling slightly as he extended it toward the animal. Storm responded with a soft lick to Luke's outstretched finger, followed by a tender nudge of his head against Luke's hand. It was a silent, simple gesture of gratitude and perhaps of farewell. In that fleeting moment, Luke felt an overwhelming connection with the animal that had been dropped into his life so unexpectedly. The bond they shared, no matter how brief, had been real. As Storm lay down, now resting more peacefully in his cage, Luke felt a deep, quiet resolve settle within him. He knew that letting Storm go was the right decision. This small moment of clarity brought a sense of peace, knowing he had played a role in the life of a wild creature. A creature that had touched him more profoundly than he could have ever imagined. Did you enjoy the story? Would you have made the same decision as Luke and let Storm go free? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked this video, don't forget to subscribe and leave a like. In bidding farewell to Storm, Luke discovered something vital: the importance of understanding and respecting the wild. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.